Under every repetitive behavior is a belief quietly running the show. Today, I want to discuss beliefs, belief systems. Beliefs and belief systems are the second tier to how I am overcoming overeating. It was something I never even considered at the beginning of this journey. But like I said, something about this juice fast, things just started to unlock. Beliefs tie heavily into the first tier, which I was talking about thoughts. So how I see it is a collection of thoughts create your belief. So, let's just say, I don't know, you hate the taste of cilantro. If every time you see cilantro, think of cilantro, see someone else eating cilantro, whatever it is, and your first thoughts are, ew, I don't like cilantro. Whether that's because it has a soapy taste, because I know some people say that, or because it's green and it's a leafy green and you're just like, ugh, vegetables, like you classify it with that. Or maybe you just had a bad experience, like you threw up and you're like, you associate it now with that experience. Those collections of thoughts eventually create your new belief. And it's the belief that you don't like cilantro. And let's say you're trying to eat more cilantro, right? Cilantro is a really good source for removing toxic heavy metals from the body. So if you're trying to do that, you might, want to eat more cilantro. But every time you come across cilantro, how many times am I going to say cilantro? Every time you come across it, you're like, ugh, I don't know why. I just can't do it. At this point, you've created a belief system that cilantro is disgusting. And as long as that system is in place, you're going to have some issues. And so that's what I want to talk about. My belief system, which I hinted at in my previous video about thoughts, was that I didn't have enough. Every time I sat down to eat, it was always, is there going to be enough? At this point, it was no longer just like a stray thought. This was my belief system. Every meal I went to go have, juice, smoothie, salad, the concern was always, is there enough? At this point, my belief was there was not enough food. And so every time I approached eating, that was there. And, I thought it was enough to understand where this belief system started. And it started, when I used to live with my dad. He had this belief system and he passed it down to me. And I was unaware that it was even really there, so I didn't work on removing it. But, food was not plentiful for him. And so he carried this belief in our house, even when there was never a lack of food. I never even experienced skipping a meal or anything like that. We always had food on the table, so I don't know what his issue was. Well, yeah, I do. He created that belief system and he hadn't worked on it, same as I. But I know this started like right around third grade, because that's when I started visiting or going over to my dad's with more frequency. And I just remember always having to sit there and finish the entire plate. Like if I didn't finish the entire plate, it would sit in the fridge or microwave till the next day, and that's what I'm having for breakfast or the next meal. So, things started there, and we weren't allowed to just take food whenever we wanted. Like if we were hungry, we weren't just like, open up the cabinet and get a snack or pour something to drink. It was like you had to ask. So then it created this habit of us tiptoeing through the kitchen and opening the fridge quietly and taking turns because, I snuck and got the last snack. It's your turn, try to share the trouble or the blame. And it started off like that. That was the first time I was feeling like it wasn't enough because I was scared to even ask for a snack. And I know my plates were so full where I couldn't even finish them, but I didn't like the food. I was eating it because I didn't really have a choice as a child. I remember stuffing my pockets and then getting in trouble because I forgot to throw it away. So the mushrooms came out in the washing machine. And, we was getting our ass beat left and right for dumb stuff. And it all started there. And I thought understanding that, where it came from, how it all began would help me eliminate the behavior. But even though I knew where it started, I wasn't getting anywhere. And now I realize why, because I knew where it started, but that didn't matter. It's already there. I mean, I guess it's helpful in just understanding why you do the things you do. So I did understand why I was overeating. And I also understood why I always felt like there was never enough. I'm jump back to sneaking pieces of bread, out of that little package and hold on, I can only take so many before it's noticeable. Is this going to be enough to get me over until nasty ass dinner comes along? Yeah, my stepmom was Trinidadian, I think that's the term. And so she made some interesting meals that I was very picky as a child, and I see why. I wish they had just given me fruits and vegetables. I would have been fine, but they was making me eat all this crazy ass food, these that I just wasn't accustomed to eating, and they just expected me to like it off the bat. And yeah, they didn't care if I didn't. But anywho, I'm digressing. The point is, I never focused on how to remove that belief. I understood how the belief came into, reality, but I didn't consider that I could remove it from my reality, that I could create new beliefs in place of the old. And so I started to do this. And this leads into reprogramming. So reprogramming, creating a new belief, because beliefs shape your reality. Because beliefs, again, are just a collection of thoughts. So I started to reprogram. I started to tell myself, there is enough food. There is an abundance. My body knows when it's full. I don't have to worry. Things like that instead of what I used to say. And slowly over time, these things have started to become automatic. Instead of being seeing Sequoia make dinner plates and stuff. I couldn't even make dinner. I did, but I didn't splitting it up okay, here's your plate, here's my plate, because it gave me so much anxiety because I was is there enough? So I'd be can you just split it? But now I've been reconditioning my mind and letting it know that, if there's not enough food on the plate, for one, I can go get more. We can make more food. And just like I said before, I can go to the store and buy more food if there's not any in the fridge. I can, recreate this meal. This is not the end. So now that's starting to be my first thought or thoughts, instead of, oh, there's not enough, let me just put a little bit more on my plate. And I also didn't feel good gypping her. I wanted us we pretty much have the same appetite. So I didn't want to give her less because of my fear. And let me touch on that. This belief, more so than there's not enough, is, if you want to drill even further, is fear. It was all fear-based, thinking from a place of lack. And I see now why I didn't feel good. That doesn't align with my inner being. My inner being doesn't know anything else besides abundance. But I was so identified with the mind and focusing on, its delusions that there wasn't enough, even though I just explained several reasons why there was. So focusing on, well, not even focusing on that fear. I'll use Abraham's teachings, pivoting from fear to a knowing of I'll be all right. So I guess you could say maybe peace. I wouldn't say joyful. I don't know what a better word for that is, but I knew I wasn't going to starve. I knew I wasn't going to go hungry. I never even really experienced starving or anything like that. So it's like, what was I really afraid of? The delusions that my mind was creating based on belief systems that were passed down to me, from my dad. And so now with this reprogramming, I was able to put in a new one because I didn't like the old one. It wasn't serving me anymore. And now this new one is much better. I wish I knew this before, but you know what? We all figure out what we need to know in the time, in our time.